Maile Bloxam with Vicky's Fabrics on Kauai, Hawaii. Welcome to Mondays with Maile, and we have our monthly scrap buster. But along with our scrap buster this month, I wanted to talk about 2.5-inch strips. So some fun facts, which always makes me laugh, but that's okay. Every company trademarks the name of their strips. So Jelly Rolls are trademarked by Moda, Lollipops are trademarked by Hoffman, roll-ups are trademarked by Kaufman, but they're all basically the same thing. They are 2.5-inch wide strips cut with the fabric, and the sets can come anywhere from 20 strips to 42 strips, okay? And what's really nice about them is half of your cutting is done for you. So many times we're using 2.5-inch strips in our quilting, but let's talk a little bit about the strip set. So the strip sets usually come as a set of coordinating fabrics from the collection. Knowing that you are going to get multiples in the strip set, anywhere from 2 to 3 multiples. The only exception that I know of is the Hoffman Lollipop, which specifically says that there are 40 different fabrics, okay? They're going to be in a collection, so you don't get to choose your colors. The colors are what they are in your strip set. I have picked out Michael Miller's Gradation for this. This is a really great line of very light gray on white tones, black on white tones, gray on gray tones, black on gray, and then black, white and black. So what's really nice is the companies are curating the strip set for you for color, for shading, all those things. So when you start using strip sets, however, especially pre-cut ones, the first thing you want to do is measure the width of the strip, okay? Not all 2.5 inches are created equal. They should be. Quilter's math. Quilter's math is a very baffling thing. But the first thing you need to do is to measure your strip to find out where your 2.5 inches really is. Okay, so the edges of your strips are going to come in 2 different ways. They're either going to be pinked or they're going to be cut straight. It's random. They can come both ways from the same company. Okay, but whether they're pinked or whether they're cut straight, the first thing you're going to want to do is measure your strip set to find out where that 2.5 is. Because if they're cut straight, there could be a hair, really less than a 32nd of an inch on either side, but when you add those up incrementally, you're going to get different measurements. When you have a pinked edge, okay, a pink edge is that zigzag, you are going to want to measure the valley to the valley. You're going to want to measure the point to the point. That 2.5 might be point to point. That 2.5 might be valley to valley, or that 2.5 might be somewhere in between. Okay? So once you know what the exact measurement of your strip set is, that's when you take a strip or you take a couple of strips, you're going to cut off a few pieces, you're going to go to your machine and you're going to do some experimentation. Okay? So when I measured this strip set with the pinked edge, my 2.5 was kind of right in the middle of that pinked edge. So when I started sewing my strips together, I knew that my seam allowance wasn't going to be from the edge of the fabric, it was going to be from slightly in, but not so far as the valley. Oh my gosh, how insane is that, right? So how do you test that? You're going to sew 3 strips together. You're going to iron them out, and you're going to lay your ruler and measure this middle strip to see how close you are to that 2-inch measurement, right? 2.5 inches, 1/4 inch on each side. That piece in between here should be 2 inches in a perfect world. We want to get towards perfection. We don't have to be perfect, but if you need to adjust your seam allowances for a little bigger bite or a little smaller bite, at least you know right here what you're doing, okay? So if I'm sewing 3 strips together, I'm going to sew, I'm going to iron, and I'm going to measure from here to here should be 2 1/4, from here to here should be 2, from here to here should be 2 1/4, and from here to here should be 6 1/2. Okay, 3 strips. So let's get stash busting. By the way, you may have to like experiment a couple of times. Taking out, putting another seam in, use your foot, you know, it's a little, sometimes with strip sets, it can be a little loosey-goosey to get the right measurements. Okay, so let's start scrap busting. I started with a strip set. I separated my darks and my lights, and I put together long strip sets with the fabric strip sets of dark, light, dark. Okay, I took those and then I cut them into 6 1/2 inch blocks. So I have a whole bunch of 6 1/2 inch blocks with dark, light, and dark. Now you can do this with a background fabric, or in my case, I had some very light pieces in my strip set. So from those, I cut 2 1/2 inch squares and orienting them all the same way. Orienting them, that's very important. Okay, if you don't orient them all the same way, you're gonna have problems later with construction. I'm going to snowball 3 corners. So I've got my strip set. I'm going to put a square in my corner. I'm going to mark corner to corner, and I'm going to sew straight on the line there. I'm going to trim this edge off, and then I'm going to press these back. Okay? So I now have this snowballed piece. Now, if you notice, I'm going to put 4 of them up here. They're all oriented with the snowballs on the same 3 sides. Okay? Snowballs all in the same 3 sides. Because when I take these, I'm going to twist them. I twist this one. And I'm going to get this fun little flower block. It's like magic, magic. Okay, so snowballed corners. This is a 12 1/2 inch by 12 1/2 inch block. What's very fun is you have the little pinwheel effect with the dark, light, dark, and then you have the whites in the corners. And I have a bunch of these already put together that you can see when we start putting together. Now I've done this with one strip set that was all blacks, whites, and grays. You can do this with colors, and instead of using a strip set in there for the lights, you can use a single color, high contrast accent fabric. And this is your scrap buster for the day. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Mondays with Maile.